Hey there, can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Now you got something hanging out of your mouth.
Can you
Something
hear me?
blowing off the top of your head.
More importantly, can you hear me?
There you go. Now I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no issues with the microphone on my ear?
Nope.
Okay. We got our first person here.
Okay. John Manning. He is from Marlboro. So you can't see me at all.
Your camera is not working or not on.
There
Now
we
you're
go.
on.
That's got a cute little spy thing. I like that. At work, I just have a piece of paper over mine. It's a weird thing coming out your head there, Andrew.
This computer is having a problem with the sound driver, so I'm using a Bluetooth microphone that's attached to headphones right now.
Ah, that's what that is.
And I'm kind of worried about it. So if I can't talk, you talk, okay?
Okay, I didn't copy all the notes. I just copied my stuff. So
Just roll with it.
I'll just roll with it. I know the material so well. Who needs notes?
In a pinch, I could join the meeting from my phone, and then I could mute the laptop and talk into my phone, but I'm gonna try to avoid doing that because that's a lot of extra work.
Mine says my internet is unstable.
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great.
And you're from Marlboro, right?
Yes.
I didn't catch that. None of our internet.
Being recorded. Meeting's being recorded, and the meeting video will be publicly available later on for anyone who would like to watch it. Corridor meeting is an opportunity where we can share information and data that we have about the corridor, and also an opportunity to collect feedback and comments from public officials, locals, experts, board members that want to share input about the transportation issues in their community. And the comments that we receive get considered as part of our update to our regional long-range transportation plan. And the regional long-range transportation plan is called Southwest Connect. I'm going to stop and share my screen. Okay, the regional long-range regional transportation plan it's called Southwest Connect, just like you see on the
I think
slide.
that's not a good thing. I think he's having
What's up?
some. Yeah, there you.
Okay, you can see my slide screen now, okay?
Yep.
Okay, on with the presentation. The long-range regional transportation plan last got updated in 2014. and we're working on an update for our plan. So we're holding regional meetings to talk about transportation and collect comments and input that we will use when we update the plan. The update to the plan is going to be complete by June of next year. And when the plan gets updated, the title will change to 2023 to 2050. So the current version of the plan is through 2014 to 2035. We have the plan online if anybody wants to read it. I just put a link in the chat if anyone wants to learn more about the current version of our long-range regional transportation plan. If anybody would like to unmute and say their name, where they're from, and why they decided to join the meeting tonight, you're welcome to do so now, or you can put your information in the chat if you prefer to do that. Is there anyone who'd like to unmute and introduce themselves?
I'll do it. This is Christine Robidoux in Temple, and I'm on the planning board and also on the community advisory. And we just did a Temple charrette here in Temple. So we've talked about traffic calming in the village center and safety issues in general. So there's been some recent chatter on our Facebook page about the Route 101 and Route 45 intersection that in the last few years was narrowed a bit, which made it a little bit scarier for those that are trying to turn off of that road in either direction, off from 101, either onto 45 or onto a side road. And so I'm interested in learning more about this whole process and how this works. This is my first meeting, so that's probably more information than you need, but that's kind of why I'm interested in participating, because I've not been to one of these before, and I'm interested in hearing what it's all about.
Great, thank you for joining us.
I'll also chime in. I said this before we started, but I'm Susan Peters, live in Dublin. I'm on the select board, and I'm currently this year the select board representative to the planning board. But back in the early 2000s, I served on the Dublin Transportation Committee and was really deeply involved in introducing traffic calming and really making some nice improvements right by the town hall in Dublin, right on 101. And at that time, we did an exhibit. The then commissioner of New Hampshire DOT came out, and what we did in Dublin was sort of an early effort in New Hampshire and got a lot of support from DOT at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jump in. I'm not Christine. That's my wife. And Lucius Partial, I serve in the state legislature, but not in transportation or anything. Our interest is because we both live in Marlborough, and we're concerned about traffic calming in Marlborough. It's since Route 9 reopened, we still are a little bit of a speedway. Well, when Route 9 was closed, they were diverting all the traffic from Marlborough.
Oh,
Yes, they were.
right, yes.
That's it.
Great, thanks for joining us.
And I'm Harold Farrington. I'm in Keene. I'm on the city planning board. Just looking for some additional context to see what other planning groups are up to in as far as 101 rolls through Keene.
All right, so I'll keep going then, unless anyone else wants to introduce themselves. This project is, we're collecting input for our long-range transportation plan, and I think that some of you that have been involved in these transportation projects will sort of understand this process when new projects come along. It has to start with sort of identifying a problem and documenting it, and then you can go from there and make a 10-year plan, and then eventually the projects will be implemented. So when we do our long-range plan, we like to get input from the region to see what people in the communities are talking about in terms of transportation, so we can record it in our plan. The presentation tonight is going to be about a 15-minute presentation. I'll start with a 15-minute overview of the corridor, and that will follow with a series of short discussions. And that will be your opportunity to give us comments during the discussions that we'll have later. And feel free to jump in and ask questions at any point during the presentation tonight. And I'll start by saying that Lisa and I both work for Southwest Region Planning Commission, or SWRPC. A key role of New Hampshire's regional planning commissions is to create and maintain long-range regional transportation plans for the region. Long-range transportation plan seeks to better understand the current conditions, the future demand for transportation, and to address the need for the population. Southwest Connect is our long-range transportation plan, and it's available online. Put the link to it in the chat a moment ago. The plan contains vision, goals, objectives, data and information about existing conditions, documentation of transportation challenges and opportunities, and documentation of projects, planned transportation improvement projects, as well as unfunded projects. And the purpose of the meeting tonight is so we can collect feedback on the corridor. Okay, in 2014, at the encouragement of New Hampshire DOT, SWRPC changed the structure of the long-range transportation plan to a corridor-based approach. And the new model replaced the previous plan, which looked at a system-wide approach where, all 34 towns in the region under one lens. The new long-range transportation plan is now focused on corridors. There are 8 major transportation corridors identified in Southwest New Hampshire. Corridors connect major destinations in the region, and they connect Southwest New Hampshire to other regions and other states. The corridor-based approach to transportation planning is beneficial because the corridors mirror the predominant movement of people. The corridors are a good scale at which to engage regional stakeholders, and the corridor level analysis encourages a more complete investigation of non-transportation factors that impact transportation, such as land use and economic development, which tend to be administered at the local level, but they have implications for the region and implications for transportation. The 101 East corridor is one of the 8 corridors in the Southwest region of New Hampshire, and it's the focus of our meeting tonight. Some of our corridors have different sections of the same highway. So we have Route 12 North, Route 12 South, 9 West, 9 East. This is the only corridor in our region that includes Route 101. Then the corridor includes 9 towns. So Keene, Marlborough, Harrisville, Dublin, Peterborough, Sharon, Temple, New Ipswich, and Greenville are the 9 towns. And Roxbury is technically not considered part of this corridor, but it's pretty important to the town. So there's 9 towns on the corridor and 10 if you count Roxbury. And each corridor has a highway, principal highway, and Route 101 is the principal highway here. There are 27.2 miles of Route 101 on this corridor, starting in Keene at the junction of Route 9, heading east all the way to Temple at the Wilton town line. So 27 miles. Route 101 is an arterial highway, and arterial is a functional classification that describes roads with the highest traffic volumes and the greatest proportion of total travel. So arterials are the busiest roads. The Route 101 corridor network also includes minor arterial and collector roads in addition to Route 101. Collector is another functional classification describing main roads that have less traffic than arterials. Collector roads connect arterials to the local roads. And other roads that are part of this corridor network include parts of Route 31, Route 45, 123, 123A, 124, and 137, and non-numbered routes as well. All the roads you see in brown on this map are part of the 101 East corridor. There were 69 serious vehicle crashes on Route 101 between 2011 and 2020. A serious crash falls into one of three categories. A crash involving a fatality. Those are the red squares on the map. A crash involving a serious injury to a motorist. Those are orange squares. And a crash involving a fatality or injury to a pedestrian, cyclist, or moped. And those are blue circles. There were 52 crashes involved serious injuries during the last 10 years on the corridor. There were 5 crashes that involved a non-motorized fatality or serious injury. And out of those 5 crashes, 4 of them occurred in Keene. 3 of them were on Route 101 as it passes through South Keene, and 1 was on Main Street. There was also a non-motorized crash in New Ipswich on Route 123 Turnpike Road. And there were 12 crashes that involved fatality on the Route 101 corridor during this period as well. The fatal crashes occurred in Keene, Dublin, Peterborough, Temple, and New Ipswich. And they were on Route 101, 123, 124, and 45. Generally speaking, safety on roadways can be improved by lowering the vehicle speeds, improving or adding signage and signals, and by increasing the visibility and pavement markings. Road safety for pedestrians and cyclists can be improved by adding or improving pedestrian infrastructure like sidewalks, curb ramps, crosswalks, and activated crossing buttons. There's an existing sidewalk on portions of Route 101 in Marlborough, Dublin, and Peterborough, and Keene as well. Keene has the most extensive network of pedestrian infrastructure. Keene also has a pedestrian bridge over Route 101, connecting sections of the SWRPC Rail Trail near the Keene State Athletic Fields. And the city of Keene plans to add another pedestrian bridge near the Stone Arch Bridge that goes where it will cross Route 101, connecting sections of the Cheshire Rail Trail. So aside from Keene, the other towns on the corridor have sidewalks networks as well and pedestrian infrastructure, less extensive than Keene. Keene has the most on the corridor. Roundabouts improve road safety by lowering vehicle speed and by eliminating a left turn across traffic. There's 2 roundabouts on Route 101, one in Dublin and one at the Shaw's Plaza in Peterborough. And municipalities can improve transportation safety through the adoption of complete street policy and complete streets guidelines. Complete streets are streets that are designed for all users, not just cars, cyclists, pedestrians as well. And complete streets policy reflects this and guides future road improvements so that all users are considered. City of Keene and the towns of Harrisville and Peterborough have municipal complete street policies, and Marlborough and Greenville are working with Southwest Regional Planning right now to develop policies. Okay, using traffic count data, we monitor changes in traffic volume over a 6-year period. These are the traffic count locations where we have collected data for NHDOT on the Route 101 corridor. AADT stands for Average Annual Daily Traffic. That's the average number of vehicles per day. Traffic count data gets collected in 6-year intervals. So our benchmark in the first column labeled AADT was collected in 2012, 13, or 14. And then the more recent data was collected 6 years later. So there were significant increases in traffic volume on Route 101 on the Temple Town line, 30% increase over 6 years. In Dublin, traffic volumes increased by 12% on Route 101 east of Church Street and 8.3 west of 137, 8.3%. Peterborough had traffic volume increases as well on Route 101 at the Dublin town line, 9%, and at 9.9% and 9% at the intersection of Route 101 and 202. And one thing you'll notice about this is the traffic volumes are much higher in Keene and Peterborough as compared to the more rural parts due to the proximity there of jobs and people and shopping, crossroads. So a lot more traffic happening in that part of the corridor. This is an inflow outflow graphic showing where residents on the corridor work. There's approximately 15,364 people who travel daily from outside the corridor into one of the 9 towns as part of for work. And there are 8,789 people who live and work on this corridor, and 11,747 who live on the corridor and drive for work outside of the corridor. The top destinations for commuting are Keene, Nashua, Peterborough, Manchester, and Milford. And the corridor is pretty long. It's about 27 miles. And on the west side, Keene pops up more as the top destination for commuters. And on the east side of the corridor, it's Peterborough. The population projections from the US Census indicate that the corridor population will increase 4.6% by 2040. Population increase will mean more traffic, more trips, and more traffic in the corridor. Okay. Most people who use the corridor drive. Alternative modes of transportation other than the personal automobile are important for people who can't drive because the cost of transportation is high. There are low-income residents on the corridor, and people travel making predictable trip patterns that can be supplemented by transit, rideshare, or other programs. Alternative transportation is limited on this corridor. However, there is some transit service, there is bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, and there's a volunteer-based driver program. The transit service on the corridor is mostly within the city of Keene. Home healthcare, hospice, and community service, or HCS, as they're known, operates the City Express, which provides fixed route service to 30 locations, and the Friendly Bus, which is free for adults over 60. At one time, there was Greyhound bus service on this corridor, and it was dropped due to low ridership. Greyhound was engaged in conversations with the town of Peterborough during this time about adding a stop on their routes. The town of Peterborough designed the Grove Street parking lot to accommodate a large intercity bus and even built a bus shelter, but they didn't end up gaining bus service, unfortunately. The Grove Street parking lot was also just in Peterborough, was also discussed as a possible park and ride location, but it was not designated as a park and ride. There's no official park and ride on the corridor. And DOT offered a federal subsidy to any bus company that wanted to bid on a route connecting Keene and Nashua, but there were no bids. And SWRPC was involved in a study looking at connecting Keene and Peterborough through new bus service. And so the route, it's been studied, but there's currently no transit service, but hopefully maybe we'll have that back someday. There's a volunteer driver program that serves all towns in this corridor called CVTC, Community Volunteer Transportation Company. They provide no fee transportation to people who do not have access to transportation because of age, ability, economic situation, or other reasons. Trips must be for non-emergency medical, social service appointments to the grocery store, pharmacy, bank, or post office. CVTC services are limited due to a lack of volunteer drivers, and communities can recruit volunteer drivers to provide rides through CVTC if they are concerned by lack of transportation options. Okay, the population on the corridor, it's about 43,000. That's the total of the 9 towns that comprise the corridor. And in our work, we consider different segments and groups of population because they have different transportation needs that we want to consider in our long-range plan. 17% of the corridor population is under 18. The population mostly doesn't drive. Some of them do. Higher percentages of youth are in New Ipswich, Marlborough, and Greenville. The young adult population is 26%, and its highest in concentration is in Keene. 20% of the corridor population is comprised of seniors over 65. Peterborough, Harrisville, Dublin, Temple, and Marlborough have the highest percentages of seniors out of the towns in the corridor. 14% of the population is low income. 21% have families with children that are headed by a single parent. And there's a higher proportion of single parent families in Keene and Peterborough than other towns on the corridor. And single parent households need flexible transportation options to deal with time constraints. 13% of the corridor population is made up of individuals with a disability. So there are different segments of the population with different needs. I'm going to get this chat. Okay, we'll talk. Sorry, just looking at the chat. All right. Okay, so at this point in the discussion, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa for our discussion. Lisa, are you there?
All right. One of the things that we want to talk about and get some input from, this is, in my opinion, this is the most important part. The beginning part was kind of to give you an overview of you know, what the current situation is. But we really need to find out, you know, we can only go so far with statistics that we've got access to. The real input needs to come from folks like you that have lived in the town for a while or driven through your towns that, you know, on 101 that see the areas where there's close calls, you know, maybe safety issues. I know the chat, either Lucius or Christine had put something in the chat about pedestrian and bicycle safety. And in Marlborough, and that's one of the areas that frightens me a lot when I see bikers trying to get ride towards Keene in some of the S curves where there's very little shoulder for the bikers. So we want to hear about those areas. We want to hear things about maybe you have some solutions that you want to share with us. Maybe so let's talk about safety concerns first, since we're on that topic. Are there areas that you're aware of in your towns or in other towns, doesn't have to be your town, that you've driven on and you have some serious safety concerns? And if so, you have some suggestions that we can include.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so since I wrote it in the chat, can I take a minute?
Sure.
Yeah. This is not in any way an area of expertise for me professionally or personally, but it's because I drive down that road so frequently that I really was curious to hear, you know, today, if planning on that stretch of road between between Keene and Marlboro is a place that people are looking at to address those sort of alternative transportation needs. And Lucius said that he thought there was some old rail trails near to the highway that parallel Route 101 during that stretch, and we don't know if they, are considered part of a solution for that stretch of road.
And I would add that the problem is that the road is thus too narrow to accommodate both bikers, walkers, and people that drive. There's some places that are extremely scary to be operating a bike. I feel for those people. It's their main means of getting back and forth to Keene. With the lack of public transportation, they're really taking a lot of chances. Probably the easiest way would be to widen the road, but I'm no expert either. So
I'm with you 100% on that. That's been a concern of mine since I moved into the area 15 years ago. Seeing a biker so close to the cars was very frightening, and it hasn't changed. I know that it is in the 10-year plan right now to do some improvements. Andrew, do you know where it starts and ends? I know it.
Could you repeat that, Lisa? I have a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, the 10-year plan. I know that we've
Mhm.
got, there is a project in the 10-year plan, transportation plan, to do some improvements along that stretch. I don't know a lot about it.
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't recall a project on Route 101 for the current 10-year plan, unless it's in one of the older ones, but I can check the older projects and see if there's a plan. I'm not aware of one. And I think that's like a pretty tough area, and a great comment too, that, Keene and Marlboro are so close together, 5 miles apart. There's a lot of people that would want to take advantage of that, but probably aren't because of that dangerous section. And there have been fatalities there. That's as I pointed out earlier. So it is a very dangerous section of road, and it could definitely use some improvements for biking and walking. I'm not aware. I know that they are starting to develop some rail trail, but from my own explorations, I'm not aware of a rail trail right of way that could connect Keene to Marlboro directly.
Can I just add, I think that speed is a big factor. I mean, and maybe signage. You do see, if you go to cities, you sometimes see pretty narrow areas where they've managed to get a bike lane in, but it's the combination of the geometry of the road and the speeds together with perhaps not enough signage indicating to share the road, telling people that they need to share the road. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Lisa, can we show the map now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share. We made a web map where it's public. Anybody can use this web map to leave points documenting problems. And I'll pull it up here in just a second. And I'm going to demo this on the screen while we discuss places, and it will help us record the location of where comments are coming from. And then I can put the link to this map in the chat. So if anyone wants to use it on their own later to record things, they can. Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen again? Okay, so this is the web map, and it will let you see other points that people have created. And for example, you can click on them and see someone's put a challenge that says statewide strategic transit assessment determined that interagency bus between Keene and Nashua is a priority. So if you use this application, you can like an existing comment, an existing point, or leave a comment on it. Just make sure that they're nice comments, they're respectful anyways. And you can make your own too by clicking the green button that says submit feedback. And then you click a point, and I'll make a point here and I'll call it a challenge and say that it is dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists.
I just would highlight, I think I understand the proximity Marlboro to Keene, but it really should be safe for people to ride if they want to, all the way from Peterborough to Keene.
Yeah.
The reasons is it's not been as heavily traveled as some of the other corridors, such as Route 12 and Route 10. I think they've gotten greater attention from the state because they're flatter. Route 101 has its challenges, you know, for bikers with the hills. But it doesn't mean that it should get ignored, and I feel like it has in many respects. What about the, I know one of the issues through Marlboro, since we're talking about this area, speed through the main part of town there has always been an issue. I've worked with Marlboro Planning Board several years ago and on transportation, and the concern was that the state wouldn't pay attention to them, to the safety concerns, and so why bother was the response then. But I think things have changed significantly. That was the old DOT, and what we're seeing now from DOT is they're really focusing on pedestrian and bicycle safety. So I feel like, you know, now's a good time to start to express those same concerns. I know that there's been some improvements with the school crossing, you know, but should that also be continued in other parts? You know, are there other things that could be done that could improve it? Because it really is, people fly through Marlboro, and interested in hearing anything you have to say about that. Are there some things that you would like to you know, relay to DOT?
Well, I think this is really a pipe dream. I'll be very honest with you. When I
That's
look
what
at
we wanna
Dublin,
hear.
Susan Peters, what a lovely job you did on 101 going through Dublin. That little road divide in front of the school, this calms all the traffic so nicely. Why can't we have a traffic circle where, what is it, 120, 124 and 101 join? That's the calm traffic there.
Yeah.
I know it's pipe dream.
It's not a
Oh.
pipe dream. Don't say that. We
Right.
worked really hard. We did a big educational, I worked with another Dubliner, and we did a lot of research and did a whole, this is sort of before PowerPoints were quite as common, but a big poster display. Carol Murray, then the DOT commissioner, came. We had charrettes. There was a lot of attention and excitement, and we made it better. It's not perfect, but it's better. And you can do it too.
Well,
Yeah, I agree with Susan. Now, like I said, the mentality of DOT 10, 15, 20 years ago certainly is different today, and I think anything's on the table. Part of the problem is when you're coming down the hill near the town office in Marlboro and you're heading towards Keene, I remember the first time I drove that direction, I didn't realize I was coming into a town, and I maintained my speed. And as soon as I found that out, I quickly hit the brakes, but it wasn't on purpose. And I think that's, if it happened to me, it happens to others that aren't familiar with the quickly reducing speed as you drive through Marlboro.
Unmute me. I'm also very curious with our aging population, not only in Keene, not only in Marlboro, but many of these places. We're talking a lot about walking, biking. Is there any forum here to talk about public transport?
Absolutely.
I know you mentioned the friendly bus, and it just seems to me that we're talking about making all these roads more car and bike friendly. Maybe if we had fewer cars on them, that might be another way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the conclusions that we reach is that there are very limited transit options in this corridor, and the ones that are there are mostly in the city of Keene. SWRPC is working on it. They are studying a new concept called microtransit, which will have you heard about that? The microtransit study. So it's like on-demand
I've heard
service.
about that study. Yeah, they were soliciting community input about that several months ago.
So they're looking at different routes. It wouldn't be the entire corridor, but it might grab some of the other towns outside of Keene. I think Keene to Peterborough was one of the routes they studied. I can follow up with more information if anyone's interested, but the microtransit is a really exciting idea because it combines like a fixed route with an on-demand service. So you can call or use an app to get a ride, and then the bus driver, it just pops up on their GPS or their phone or whatever, and it just kind of adapts a route based on who is requesting rides. So you're absolutely right. There are very limited transit options on this corridor, and it's going to take a while, and it's definitely going to need to people need to speak up. And that's one of the reasons why we have this, is because we need to record these comments so we can demonstrate that there's a demand for this sort of thing, but currently very limited options.
That we hear from across the region, so it's not unique to one area. There really is a demand for alternative transportation. Route 10 is a perfect example. People trying to get to jobs from Winchester into Keene. Seems like a simple solution, but there's not. There's not the ridership that enough to encourage somebody to take on the task, and it's been very frustrating for us as well as the residents. So
it seems it's such an important topic. If there was more sort of micro transit, it's a way that seniors could stay in their homes if they live in some of these smaller towns. The community outreach I participated in several months ago, a lot of the talk was about Keene, where there already are some options, because of course the population is there. But people were asking, how about Peterborough to Keene? How about, Peterborough to Jaffrey? How about a way to get to the train station of Brattleboro? And so those of us in these more outlying areas, there were people, very interested, just beyond just the, Keene community, people very interested in seeing that people are forced to leave their homes once they're not comfortable driving. But if there was a way to have an on-demand service, obviously that people paid for, just even if it was 2 days a week to, let's say, Hancock, so somebody could plan their grocery shopping, get to Shaw's in Peterborough. Just even if it's 1 day a week, 1 or 2 days a week in a given small town, maybe Marlborough, it's a little bit bigger, would have more than that, but it doesn't have to be full service round the clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, what about, Andrew, if you can move the map, because I don't think I can do that, through Dublin. Let's start talking about Dublin and Peterborough. Again, Dublin, the improvements that were done there, Susan, thank you for all your work for that. I think it does a significant amount to reduce the speeds through there and improve safety for pedestrians and bicycles. I know people complain about stuff like that, but bottom line is it's a much safer situation. Do you see anything that needs to be added to this plan? Now we've got Brian Barden on as well. So anything through Dublin that should be included? All right, how about
I'll jump in if Brian's not going to say anything. We have the hill going down, and the hill sort of starts at the east side of Dublin Lake and then goes all the way really till you get to the gas station at Route 137. And I think cars don't really, even with the traffic calming right in the center, cars don't really slow down when they're going by Dublin Lake, and after they're past Dublin Lake, they don't slow down enough. I don't know whether there needs to be more signage or I don't know what, but they're still going faster. That's an area where people may be accessing the lake to go swimming with families at the women's club. Yeah, I'd love to see a way to ensure that people are not driving as quickly from the east side of Dublin Lake, really all the way down to Route 137.
Okay. You can include that as an area.
Especially right here. Yeah, right.
Link to this application is in the chat. So if anyone wants to add to this map later, you're welcome to do so.
And, share it with folks that so that they can add things to the map. So then we get through to Peterborough. They put the roundabout at the bottom of the hill near Shaw's. I know a lot of people laugh at that one, but it does serve a very important purpose. And they also had put the rumble strips going down. Don't know if anything else needs to be said there. 101 and 202. What can I say about that? It's a mess. Always a lot of concerns through there.
Do you know when that those projects on Route 101 in Peterborough are going to be completed? You know, there's the bridge they're working on right by the shopping plaza.
I do not. JB Mack was planning on, usually he would be able to answer those questions for you, but he was sick today, so he's not on with us. But I'm sure he could tell you. So I apologize for some of these questions that we can't, that Andrew and I can't answer, but
Is that by the shopping plaza in Peterborough? And the
Yeah.
bridge over the, yeah. Okay, yeah, we can follow up with you on that question. I don't know the answer either.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just curious because it is, you know, coming from Temple into Peterborough, from, you know, from the east, heading east to west. You know, cars do approach that work site fairly quickly, even though the speed is reduced. Because they're coming down the mountain, it's 50, then it's 40, and then it's 30, and sort of short distance. So that was my only reason for asking. The traffic light there is a huge help when that was put in.
Sure. Yeah. It's not gonna be fun during the winter for sure either. Thanks, John, for being in the meeting.
Yeah, I apologize. I have to jump off. So thanks for the input. I'll keep an eye on the stuff online.
I'll be talking to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Goodbye. All right, anything else in Peterborough? All right, let's move into Temple. Are there some areas of concern? Either
I learned
on-
about an area called the S curves near Blood Brook, and there were some vehicle crashes there a few years ago, and it led to the project being nominated to DOT's 10-year plan. But it sounds like the project was not built yet. So I was wondering if that's still an issue that people are concerned about, and if there's been any anything new on that project. And I think it's right here. Is that right?
That seems about right. Maybe even where the curve is, you can see it on your map.
Yeah.
And there's poor visibility there as well. Coming around the corner. I'm surprised that there isn't something on the 45 and 101 intersection. And so I've a couple things. First, I wanted to say that please don't leave Temple out in your public transportation alternative methods of transportation planning. The mountain is a deterrent for a lot of young people that want to get jobs in Peterborough that live in Temple, who can't get over the mountain. They can't drive, they don't drive yet. And so they're not able to access after school activities, you know, the Avenue 18 Center, and jobs as well. So when considering public transportation, I know we're a little town, but it would be great to include us in planning for that, even if it's just a one-stop, you know, type of thing. The curve I haven't heard as much about in Temple, other than you know, probably what you already have. But the intersection of 45 and 101, it used to have a pretty generous shoulder, and that was reduced in the last, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago, which, you know, results, you know, it used to be that people would drive fast past a car waiting to turn, which they still do, but now since they made the road more narrow, cars aren't able to get around, so they're coming at the vehicles waiting to turn fast. My husband and I have actually both been hit in this intersection. Mine was more weather related, but the car behind me couldn't slow down. So I guess my question is, do you have more recent accident data? I feel like I saw a report online, but it was not recent. So I'm curious about accident data for that intersection in particular. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about that intersection is that Ben's Sugar Shack is putting in a pretty significant building there, and roads and traffic trailers will be turning off of 101 to access that property, it onto the side road, not directly from 101. So there is potential for, you know, tractor trailers and large vehicles to be stopped at that intersection waiting to turn. So in terms of planning, I guess I think I need more to see, love to see more data about that intersection, but I think that needs to be on the radar. So it's kind of a lot I just dumped on you, but
No, that's great, Christine, thank you.
there was just comments and people talking about this intersection on our Temple Facebook page within the last 2 days, just from people saying they nearly get hit all the time. And as I said, my husband and I both have been hit in that intersection.
Yeah, and what our safety map is showing is serious accidents or fatalities. So it's not going to show every single accident.
Right, right.
But this is exactly what we're looking for, because those near hits are locations that we're never going to know about. It's, you know,
Right.
unless we've experienced it. So we do need this local input.
So I was curious, on one of your slides earlier, you showed a 30% increase in traffic for Temple. How does that figure into your plan? Because that, if I'm not mistaken, that was the most significant increase on your chart.
You're right. It definitely is the most significant increase. And I don't know if we can go back to that.
Yep.
Thanks, Lucius, for your input. Appreciate it.
And I'm wondering, is that just 101, that 30% increase, or does that include 45?
I'd have to see the slide. Okay.
Okay,
It's on Route 101.
just 101.
Yep. Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. So
Yeah.
Temple at the Wilton line.
Yeah, that's definitely a significant increase. And I mean, the way it plays into the plan is just understanding how much traffic is on these roads and where people are headed, and roads are seeing more and more traffic, and more traffic means safety concerns. It means wear and tear and damage to the road. A lot of predictable trips that can be supplemented with alternative transportation. So those will be the things that we're considering, and that 30% definitely jumped out at me too. That's the biggest traffic increase that I've seen over the 6-year period. DOT has more extensive data available that I can share with you if you'd like, and it really does show a steady increase in people using the road. There's a little bit of a dip that's visible in 2020, but it looks like, the cars are back on the road, and we're really starting to see a significant increase in traffic, especially in these areas.
I wonder though if that was the subject of a detour or something, because if you look at the other numbers, I mean, where did the people go? I would think that if Temple jumped that high, that the others should have jumped, more than what they did also. I mean, people were going to their homes on side streets and things like that, but still, that's a big difference.
Yeah,
So-
I'm wondering about that as well, like how to account for that.
Sometimes when we see changes like that, it's because of a detour. And the traffic counts are taken for a week. We have folks that go out, lay the traffic counters and pick them up the next week. So it could be the time of the year. It could be that there was a detour. Could have been a traffic accident that caused things to go around, but not by that much. So we'll have to look into that because that just doesn't look right.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well, and I'd be curious about the numbers for Route 45 also. Because we do have a significant number of people that come through on 45 heading to Massachusetts. As well as, well, this isn't one of the roads on your chart, but General Miller Highway is also a state road. And a lot of people use that to cut through and then over to West Road to get to Millipore. Is it Millipore? What's the one in Jaffrey? Yeah, Millipore. That's a commuter route. And so there's a significant amount of traffic there as well at high speed. Which I guess leads me to my next area of concern, which is, well, West Road is definitely one, which isn't one of your main roads, but it is used as a commuter route. And then the village center. Traffic coming in the village center was one of our areas that we looked at during the charrette. And so I'm really interested in hearing about what was done in Dublin. So we've sort of started that community engagement piece, and we've recognized that there's an issue. And actually Dublin was one of the ones that people cited as like, why can't we do something like that? So that was great. But road narrowing and letting people know that they're coming into a village district, rather than coming through at 45 miles an hour, which is what's happening now. That is a big concern as well. So I don't know if you could put that back on your map.
I just want to say Susan put a very good piece of advice in the chat just now, and she says that one of the challenges advocating for change in road community for road improvements is community engagement. Local elected officials, residents, town staff, and regional state transportation officials, education and public meetings. So
yeah, we're doing all that right now.
Yeah, it's you definitely need to rally the troops.
Yeah, we're looking at the Complete Streets program as well, and yeah.
I could add that a key part of what happened in Dublin was when we started this, we're doing this research and learning more about traffic calming. A private foundation was formed here in Dublin to raise money to have an engineering study done. So there were some, and some of them were, seasonal residents. There were really sort of a few, I think, key donors, but everybody in town was invited to participate. And we raised some tens of thousands of dollars that went towards having an engineering study done. And the process of engaging the engineer, it was an RFP and interviewing different engineers. But having that engineering study helped people to envision it. Also, as part of that, we were applying for grants, and there were a couple of key transportation grants. That money did not go towards the engineering study. As I say, the engineering study was paid for with private money, but then when the construction started, we really got into the more of the nitty-gritty. That's where that federal grant money, and I don't think federal money may be distributed by the state. I'm not really sure how that works, but so it was a combination. But again, it's painful to think about hitting people up for money, but it gives you the opportunity to tap into expertise early on, if possible. I hope that's helpful.
Was the engineering study necessary in order to apply for the grants?
No, the chicken and egg here is a little clear because this was 20 years ago. What actually happened was that I was on the planning board, and in 1999, we got some sort of a little one-page letter, it seems to me, that is what I remember anyhow, that the Southwest Regional Planning Committee Commission was spearheading a study of the corridor from Keene to Milford, the 101 corridor from Keene to Milford. And I don't want to overplay my role in this, because this was a whole community effort. There are so many people involved over time, many people involved. But right at the beginning, when I talked to a friend and who had some experience with sort of bringing about change in government, and so that got us going in the education. And so I can't remember the timing of when we applied for the grants, but we applied early for those grants. But the engineering study gave us something then concrete to really work from. So they didn't apply for the grants right away. I think we may have done the this whole sort of education thing where the commissioner came right around the same time that we're applying for the grant money.
Yeah, it's like you said, the engineering study is really critical to help people envision the change, which can bring a lot of people on board and make it seem real. But sometimes the engineering study needs to get paid for, so you have to get the grant to do the engineering study before you can get the project off the ground. So
Right. I mean, in our case, we were fortunate, and I think other communities may have the situation too, where there were a couple of residents in our town that were really, maybe they had some deep pockets, but they cared a lot about our community, and everybody in town knew that, there could be improvements to the speed and the way, the safety on 101. So, that is an option potentially for some early seed money, is if you have some interested residents who may be able to help with that. But I know that that's a tricky piece.
Lisa, do you want to talk about EV?
I really
Or
want to.
Want me to?
No, that's fine. So we're going to talk a little bit about infrastructure. So what is the condition of the infrastructure on the corridor? Are there areas and are there investments that need to be made? Is there infrastructure that needs to be replaced or improved? One of the things that's come up is that the Route 101 corridor has been nominated as an electric vehicle corridor to the Federal Highway Administration as part of DOT's National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan, which is also known as NEVI. The nomination is pending. The distinction of being an electric vehicle corridor means that the Federal Highway Administration will support the build out of charging infrastructure with funding made available through the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So according to a resource provided by the U.S. Department of Energy, there's just one public charging station on this corridor, and that's located in Peterborough. There's another one off of Main Street in Keene, but it's not right on 101. And both of these are level 2 charging stations, which takes a few hours to charge. Is there a lack of charging station for electric vehicles? Is that a problem that's been discussed in your communities?
It has not been discussed as a problem in Temple, but I know our renewable energy task force was looking into putting in a charging station in Temple near the library, and it was not cost effective. It was going to cost the town money, so that they dropped the idea.
In Dublin, we formed an energy committee. We started meeting last February, and it's interesting because nobody has approached us, and I've written a few things for our monthly Dublin Advocate about the energy committee, and we've talked about community power, we've talked about solar, and we've tried to put it out there to what the community wants and to get ideas, but nobody's come and said we need electric charging stations. So we haven't heard that, but I'm sure there would be some interest because we do have some people with electric vehicles, but people haven't been coming to our energy committee about it, which is kind of surprising. I think maybe that everybody's busy and they may not be paying that much attention to the energy committee.
So,
This is the only road in our region that it has the designation of the electric vehicle corridor. So that means that there will be likely funding available through the bipartisan infrastructure bill to it'll support electric vehicle charging stations. So if folks are interested, I think that the 101 corridor is a place where they will likely see funding to help the charging stations get built.
so in anticipation of that, where would you suggest putting one or two?
Peterborough, probably.
Yeah,
This is the map from the Department of Energy. And there's just one that really on the corridor that's in Peterborough on the Grove Street lot. So I think they might be the only one. And then there are places in Keene, like right off Main Street, but looks like there's a lot of ways to travel in between charging stations if you have electric vehicle. I've not specifically about Route 101, but I've talked to other people that have difficulty getting in between charging stations in their battery life of an electric vehicle.
yeah, Temple might be a good place, since it's a little bit further away from Peterborough and Keene.
So the town doesn't own any land anymore on Route 101. So it would either have to be privately owned or we did just sell, I think it's about a half acre to the state next to their DOT building on Route 101.
Okay.
I don't know. We sold it to them for $1 and I don't think it's currently being used. So that could be a potential location. I don't know if I could point out exactly where it is on it.
I missed some of your comments earlier, so I'm going to go back with the recording and add everything in. So I'll figure out where that is and add a point for it.
Sure. It's not far from that intersection of 45 and 101. There's a little, if you look at the satellite map, you'll probably be able to find it pretty easily.
Do you mean by the salt barn kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah. So we just sold them a little triangle piece, which is east of that building.
And if it were in Dublin, where would you suggest?
Probably Bonds Corner, 137, 101 intersection.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of lost you guys a little while ago, but if I got just a minute, I can say something about Route 101 in Marlboro. That part of that is in for a 10-year plan from Yachts Bridge to Branch Road.
Okay.
That's in the 10-year plan. From there, there's nothing. But I mean, when you get into Dublin, the worst part is getting around the lake. Everything is pretty tight in there, so there's not a whole lot you can do. And besides, it's a cement road underneath the pavement, and that would be an expensive infrastructure work.
Right. Is there some infrastructure that's needed, Brian, around the lake, or anywhere along through Dublin?
The worst, the worst part is getting where you really can't do much is around the lake, because you got ledge and stuff that just kind of prohibits you to, either widen it or, trying to make it safer.
Mhm.
As far as once you get out of the village, you start down over the hill. Speed does pick up again. And we've had 3 crashes at 137 and 101 in the last 2 months. And that was just plain inattention. People they went through the stop sign.
Okay. How about infrastructure needed on any of the other, in any of the other towns? Are there areas that are less resilient to natural disasters? That maybe culverts need to be improved or upgraded? Doesn't seem so on 101. Okay. Are there other topics that weren't mentioned that you want to comment on? I feel like we've hit everything.
It looks good to me.
Comment, I have one comment, which is probably outside the control of your Southwest Regional, but it's the noise of the vehicles. We have a lot of hills in our area, and there's a lot of noise off those trucks with the braking and everything else.
Yeah, that's something that would be difficult. We can include it. And the intention of us creating this plan, or actually we're updating the plan, is to have something for towns to be able to point at when they're, if they have some issues in town, or if they're approaching DOT, or if we're looking for something in the 10-year plan, this can be a resource as having identified it in this plan. Andrew, I've got nothing else, so.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments that they want to add before we adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, this is Brian. On the noise, as far as the trucks go, actually, that's a safety issue. That's actually acting as a brake. So the trucks will slow down and be able to stop, especially on hills. So it is,
Right, but if
it
they
is a
also-
problem, but it's something that I think we got to live with.
It's a safety issue, but if they weren't going so fast to begin with, like. when
Well, then
They're
we'll
going-
leave that up to the police department. They should manage that.
Yeah.
But they do go too fast.
Okay, any final comments or final thoughts before we adjourn the meeting?
Just
All right,
thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're
Thank
very
you.
welcome, and happy holidays to everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good night.
Good night.